Everyone thinks Arsenal got lucky this transfer window. They didn't. 5 financial mechanics, from academy sales to amortization, are quietly turning Arsenal into one of the biggest net spenders in English football. And while rivals are stuck servicing huge debt, Arsenal are just buying players. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how they're doing it, legally, right under the noses of clubs with bigger wage bills and bigger debts. Because here's the thing, Arsenal just spent £75 million on Bruno Guimarães. They brought in Christos Tzolis for £34 million. They made Piero Hincapie's loan permanent. And they're still chasing Ezri Konsa. So how is a club that isn't owned by a nation-state or a Silicon Valley billionaire outspending clubs that are? Let's break it down. 5 reasons at a time. Reason number 1, amortization. Sounds boring? It's not. Think of it like financing a car. You don't pay the full price in one hit. You spread it over years so it doesn't wreck your monthly budget. Football clubs do the same with transfer fees. And it's the single most misunderstood number in the sport. When Arsenal signed Bruno Guimarães for £75 million on a 4-year deal, the headlines scream £75 million signing. But on the balance sheet, Arsenal only register £18.75 million a year. That's the fee divided by the contract length. This is why a scary-looking transfer fee doesn't automatically cripple a club's spending power. The sticker price is for the headlines. The amortized cost is for the accountants. And it's the accountant's number that decides whether a club can go out and sign someone else that same summer. This mechanic is the backbone of modern football spending. Clubs that get into real trouble aren't the ones amortizing fees. They're the ones amortizing fees on players who get injured or flop, leaving dead weight on the books for years. Arsenal's bet is that Guimarães is worth every one of those annual installments. And early signs suggest he is. Reason number 2, clearing the wage bill. This one's less about money coming in and more about money that stops going out. Think of your subscriptions. Netflix, Spotify, the gym membership you barely use. Cancel one and suddenly you've got room in your budget for something new, without spending an extra pound. That's basically what Arsenal did with Leandro Trossard. When Trossard left for Besiktas, Arsenal didn't just collect a transfer fee, they wiped his entire salary off the books. That freed-up wage space goes a long way toward covering what a replacement costs. In this case, Christos Tzolis, whose annual amortized cost is nowhere close to what Trossard's wages plus his own book value combined were. So it's not really Arsenal replaced Trossard with Tzolis. It's more accurate to say Arsenal swapped an aging, more expensive contract for a younger, cheaper one, and pocketed the difference in financial flexibility. And this doesn't just apply to the headline moves. Arsenal also sold Jakub Kiwior to Porto and Christian Nørgaard to Everton. Neither is a blockbuster departure, but together those deals generated more than £20 million. And that quietly funds the entire first-year accounting cost of bringing in a player like Hincapie on a permanent deal. This is the part most fans miss. You don't need one massive sale to fund one massive signing. You can fund it with 3 or 4 smaller, unglamorous sales that nobody's talking about. That's roster efficiency, and it's exactly how clubs stay under UEFA's squad cost ceiling without anyone noticing the maneuvering. Reason number 3, and this is where Arsenal has an edge money can't easily replicate: debt. Or in Arsenal's case, the relative lack of it. Let's talk about Manchester United because their situation shows exactly what Arsenal is avoiding. United's total debt and liabilities have climbed to around £1.3 billion. Some of that traces back to the Glazer family's leveraged takeover in 2005. And by some estimates, United have paid over £850 million in pure interest since that deal happened. In just the first 9 months of one recent financial year, their net finance costs alone came to nearly £56 million. That's £56 million spent just servicing debt before a single player is signed. Now look at Tottenham. Spurs are carrying roughly £850 million in debt, most of it tied to their £1.2 billion stadium. They're paying somewhere around £30 million a year just on debt servicing for that stadium alone. Add in the fact that depreciation on the stadium routinely eats another £70 million a year off their bottom line, and you start to see why Spurs can post record revenue and still struggle to turn that into transfer spending power. The stadium generates income, sure, but a huge chunk of that income is immediately swallowed by the cost of having built it. Arsenal simply isn't carrying that same weight. Without those kinds of interest payments draining cash reserves every month, they've got liquidity that rivals like United and Spurs don't have in the same form. And liquidity means options. It means Arsenal can walk into a negotiation and offer to pay up front in full, while a rival club is stuck trying to structure an installment plan just to make a bid competitive. Selling clubs love certainty. If Aston Villa are negotiating a fee for someone like Ezri Konsa, and one bidder offers cash today, while another offers payments stretched over years with financing conditions attached, you know which offer gets taken more seriously. It's the difference between walking into a shop with a maxed-out credit card versus walking in with a full wallet. Same spending power on paper, completely different experience at the till, and completely different leverage in the room. And that brings us to reasons 4 and 5, which really are two sides of the same coin: growth. First, academy sales. Think about the difference between selling something you built yourself for free versus reselling something you paid full price for. When Arsenal sells a homegrown player, there's no transfer fee sitting on the books to subtract from the sale. The entire fee counts as pure profit under the profit and sustainability rules. Offload even a modest academy or fringe player, and it goes straight onto the profit column, no strings attached. That's instant breathing room that rivals without a strong academy pipeline simply don't have access to. Second, and this is the big one, revenue growth. Champions League qualification isn't just prestige, it's prize money. It's matchday revenue at the Emirates. It's bigger commercial deals, because sponsors want to be attached to a club that's winning and playing in Europe's biggest competition. And here's why that matters so much under the current rules. UEFA and the Premier League cap how much a club can spend on its squad as a percentage of total revenue. So when Arsenal's overall revenue climbs, thanks to the title, a Champions League run, growing commercial deals, their spending ceiling climbs automatically right alongside it. Compare that to Tottenham, whose record £565 million revenue season still ended in a near £95 million pre-tax loss, largely because of stadium costs eating the gains. Or Manchester United, still working through refinancing hundreds of millions in debt even as revenue improves. Both clubs are growing revenue too, but a huge share of that growth gets absorbed by debt and depreciation before it ever reaches the transfer budget. Arsenal doesn't have that leak. Growth in revenue translates almost directly into growth in spending power. While some rivals are stuck fighting over a fixed or even shrinking pie every summer, Arsenal's pie is getting bigger every season. And a bigger pie means a bigger slice they're legally allowed to spend. So let's tie it all together. Amortization spreads the cost of big signings. Smart exits clear wage space. Low debt service means cash on hand when it matters most. Something United and Spurs, weighed down by over £1 billion combined in debt and interest, simply can't say. Academy sales are pure profit, and rising revenue keeps expanding the ceiling on what they're allowed to spend without the leaks that hit their competitors. None of this is a loophole in the shady sense. It's just financial literacy applied at scale, while some of the biggest names in English football are still paying for decisions made 10 or 20 years ago. And it's exactly why, transfer window after transfer window, Arsenal keep finding room to spend when everyone assumes they shouldn't be able to. So the real question isn't how Arsenal are outspending their rivals this summer. It's what happens next window, when that revenue ceiling climbs even higher, and United and Spurs are still writing checks to their lenders.